Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. Today we're going to take a walk down what can be known as a simple forgiveness diet that can deal with self-sabotaging beliefs and behaviors that keep us from accomplishing what we would like to have in life. Things such as harsh judgments, self-loathing can be released and replaced with acceptance, compassion, and forgiveness for a positive outcome. This coming from our guest today who's joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program. His book is Forgive to Win, How We Can End Self-Sabotage and Get Everything We Want. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our guest, Dr. Walter E. Jacobson. Dr. Jacobson, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
You know, it's really, I want to say right off, it's fascinating to see a book that you have like this to be so small, so simple, yet very profound and direct in its messages. Tell us how you came up with this particular process.
Well, you know, I've been studying psychology and self-help books and reading. I started reading them before I became a doctor and a psychiatrist, and you know, there are so many books out there, and there are so many books out there because people still need them. And I kept on wondering, well, why do people continue to need self-help books over and over, and they keep on reading these books and buying these books and going to seminars? And I realized there must be something that's missing, and I realized that the thing that is missing is that people sabotage themselves. They sabotage their self-help plans. So they let's say they buy a book and they don't read it. It sits on the shelf. Or they buy a book and they read it and they don't finish it. Or they buy it, they read it, they finish it, but they don't apply it on a consistent basis. So they sabotage all these wonderful books that are out there with wonderful messages and wonderful truths. And so I tried to figure out, well, what's the deal? Why is that happening? Why do people self-sabotage? And I realized, and this also came from my practice with people, that it's all because of deeply embedded unconscious guilt, shame, and self-loathing. That the subconscious mind takes its cues from the unconscious. So if at a deep unconscious level we believe we're not worthy, we're not good enough, we're not deserving of happiness and success, the subconscious mind will then make that happen. It will tell us, you're not good enough. It's not going to work out. Why bother? People don't like you. And it'll also attract us, through basically the law of attraction to people and circumstances that will not synergize with our needs. So I realized we have to tackle self-sabotage in order to get all the things we want in life.
Now, what is it about us that we really hold on to the negative beliefs, if you will, versus really trying to embrace and empower the positive ones?
Well, it really comes down to our childhood messages. That people talk about the first 5 years of life, that basically your personality is formed, your belief systems, your self-definitions are formed. And so at an unconscious level, we get these self-definitions of that we're stupid, we're not good enough, we're thoughtless, we're inconsiderate, we're not lovable. And so these stay embedded in our unconscious mind, and they basically are a template for all our behaviors. So we try with our conscious mind to push through past that and to try to actualize the things that we want. But oftentimes these deeply embedded negative self-definitions they're there, and they impact, and they just make us on some level not go the distance, and drop the ball, and not do the things that are necessary. So we sabotage ourselves. We don't do the things we know that are in our best interests.
Now, here's an interesting scenario, and this goes back to, I remember being in junior high school. There was a guy that became my best friend, and he was very athletic. And he was also the kind of guy that a lot of the girls really wanted to be with him, that sort of a thing. And so then we get into high school, then eventually he just kind of disappeared for a while. Well, anyway, his sister had contacted me. This was probably about 10 years ago. And we were talking about, how he was doing and what was going on there. And we also associated with him with a couple of classmates who were kind of the same way, especially in high school. And, these were guys that were fairly gifted when it came to athletics, sports such as basketball, for instance. And they seemed to get out there in the world after high school. I can't even remember. I think they attempted college, but basically faded away from it and kind of fell apart. I mean, they just weren't all that like they were in school. And I think to myself, okay, now, here were some people who basically seemed nurtured by their parents to believe, you're really good, you're special, this sort of a thing, and so they rose to that level, so to speak. But then as they got out there in the world and got away from mom and dad, they just seemed to kind of let go, and they just weren't as good as they believed they were through those times. What causes people to do that?
Well, I think that that basically the period of time up through like elementary school, junior high, high school is sort of a false. In my opinion, it's a false reality. It's kind of structured in a way to make us think and believe certain things are easier than they are. We really don't have any responsibility. We don't really have to do anything except show up at school, do some homework, play sports. But it's not the real world. It's sort of an artificial bubble. And so I think you're right. People get the impression that they're invincible, that everything's just going to fall in their lap, and they're going to have the same success or the same failure that they had when they were younger, when they get into the real world. And so I think it's kind of people get a false sense of security or confidence, and their personalities, the fullness of who they are on multiple levels, it just hasn't really been formed yet. And so then when they move into the world where there are real responsibilities and anxieties, and you have to make commitments, and you've got to really know who you are, you don't. And I think this has to do, by the way, with the fact that we don't have any mental health as we're growing up. Every year the kids get physical checkups, but they don't get emotional checkups. They don't get behavioral checkups. And I think that's really something that's missing in the educational system. If children and young adolescents were to each year be able to talk to somebody, process their feelings, process the confusion they may have, look at their self-esteem issues, look at possibly abandonment issues, and be working on them, then when they get out in the real world, they will have a toolkit that will serve them much better.
I think it's really interesting that you use forgiveness as basically the theme in your book here. Why did you choose to go that route? Okay, so as I said, if the main problem with people not getting what they want is self-sabotage, and the self-sabotage is due to deeply embedded guilt, shame, and self-loathing, not feeling good enough, having a lot of non-acceptance of self, then the solution is self-love. The solution is self-acceptance. And basically, the way you forgive yourself, accept yourself, love yourself, is to forgive, accept, and love others. Now, people go, well, how does that work? And basically, the idea is this. When we judge other people and are unforgiving towards other people, we are really just projecting onto them. It's a defense mechanism. So we can feel good about ourselves. We project our own guilt, shame, and self-loathing onto other people. We see them with all the defects and flaws. We point the finger at them. We say they're undeserving of love. They're not good enough. They're bad. But really all we're doing is just projecting our own self-definitions onto other people so we can feel better about ourselves. So if we're doing that, then the way to resolve that and forgive and love ourselves is to forgive, love, and accept our projections. And you do that by forgiving, loving, accepting others. So when you forgive, love, and accept others, you really are forgiving, loving, and accepting yourself. It really is. It's kind of a part of the golden rule. You do unto others what you do unto others. You're doing unto yourself. So that's the key. That's why forgiveness is so powerful, because it has nothing to do with the other person. When you forgive somebody else, you really are forgiving, accepting, and loving yourself. And the more you do this over and over and over again, you're sending the message to your subconscious mind that you're worthy, you're good enough, you're deserving of happiness and success, and then it starts cooperating with you. Rather than trying to sabotage you, it tells you you are good enough, you are worthy, you can accomplish these great things, you can go after your dreams, don't give up. People are out there to help you, and it'll actually attract people and circumstances that will synergize with your goals. Now, forgiveness, I know for a lot of people, can be a very big thing. In other words, geez, it's kind of hard for me to do that. What do you think inside of us prevents us, perhaps, or at least holds us back from genuinely doing what you're suggesting here?
Most people are hurt and angry when they've been attacked or victimized in some way, and they want to punish the other person. They want to see the other person hurt well. Now, forgiveness, by the way, is not about people not taking responsibility for what they do. But the point is, we feel that they deserve shame, they deserve guilt, they deserve punishment. We're angry and hurt. We want to hurt back. And so withholding of forgiveness is a way that we believe we are hurting them. But the irony is, you're really hurting yourself. Because these people who have done things to you, oftentimes decades in the past, they're not losing any sleep over it. They're not thinking about you. They don't even remember your name. But you are carrying the past into the present, maintaining your own sense of victimhood, and continually being in an emotional prison and being unhappy. So you forgive others for your own peace of mind. But people hang on to unforgiveness because they also may think that if I forgive, then I'm being weak. If I forgive, then I'm somehow condoning what they've done. If I forgive, I'm asking to be hurt again. And all those are misconceptions designed to keep a person in a state of victimhood and unforgiveness.
You know, like I said, your book is so simple and direct, and I think that's very refreshing considering, you know, the sea of books that can be 200 to 400 pages long, and you realize, you know, you could have actually said this at a lot less, and I could have had more time, actually, to implement what we're talking about here, which is exactly what you have the opportunity to do here in Forgive to Win. Now, one of the things that you talk about as we are in this forgiveness process is the power of gratitude. Tell us how that works.
Okay, so the thing about oftentimes about unforgiveness is that when we feel that we've been victimized and hurt, that we feel somehow we've been damaged and injured, and so that's why we want to maintain our unforgiveness. So gratitude is a way to actually enable you to forgive when you don't want to, because what gratitude involves, recognizing that you know, despite what you don't have, you have a lot of blessings in your life. And despite what you don't have, there are other people who have even less and have even worse lives. So despite what has happened to me in the past, I actually have it pretty good. I'm fortunate. I'm blessed in various ways. So you look for the blessings. You look for how fortunate you are, despite any lack or limitations or victimization that has happened to you in the past. So when you make a gratitude list every day and recognize all the good things in your life, it makes it much easier for you to let go of the hurts and the pains from the past and forgive others.
You know, that's so true when you look back on your life and you realize that you've been, you know, had bad times as you might perceive them to be. A lot of us, in fact, all of us have those. And when we're in the moment where we're experiencing these situations, it seems like they're just going to go on forever. Yet you look back on it and you realize, well, you know, that didn't last as long as I thought it did. And then you even come sometimes to realize, you know, I was kind of happy during those times, which is kind of an interesting paradox, if you will. And what I like in your book that you talk about, and you break it down into components, is when you talk about the spiritual forgiveness diet. Tell us more about that.
Okay, so basically, if you agree with the premise that forgiveness, forgiving and loving others is the key to your own success, is the key to forgiving and loving yourself and ending self-sabotaging behavior, then you have to learn how to forgive. You have to practice forgiving and loving others, and so you need a template. You need, because this is not easy. Your ego will resist, and so you really have to make this a habit. Right now, our default mode is to not forgive, to be judgmental and angry and selfish and self-entitled. So we have to override all these behaviors. So you need a template. You need a program. So the forgiveness diet is basically a program designed to keep your mind focused on the imperatives here. So that's what I did. I decided, okay, let me just kind of parallel my spiritual forgiveness diet with a sort of a physical diet and the terminology that we use in when we want to lose weight. And so that's what I did. I broke it down to different components to make it easy for people to understand and integrate. So there's spiritual protein that we want, there's spiritual fat and sugar we don't want, and there are other elements as well.
Now, let's go ahead and talk about the different components, because I found these interesting as you describe what they are. And the first one is a high intake of spiritual protein. And when I was taking a look at that, I remember there was a time in my life where I actually did volunteer as I was out of work, and this was many years ago. And people would say, well, why weren't you looking for a job? And I said I was, but I felt that if I was doing this, that I was actually working. And therefore, as I go and I do job interviews, I kind of go in there with the confidence that I'm already working, but I'm looking for something maybe a little bit better than what I'm doing, so to speak. And sure enough, it didn't take very long before that happened, and people would scratch their head thinking to themselves, but why didn't you try to find something that would pay you? And I said, well, for one thing, I just felt better giving. That's just the way it was. And a lot of times people want to do something like give, But, that underneath they're saying to themselves, as you say in the book, well, what's in it for me?
Right. Right. Definitely. That's the shift that we have to make from what's in it for me to how can I help others. So, again, the premise is that when you love others and forgive others, you're loving, forgiving, and healing yourself. So, therefore, the protein, the backbone, the foundation of the diet is two main proteins. One is service to others, esteemable acts of kindness to others. So every day, in every way, you try to help others. You get out of yourself, you get out of your ego, you try to help others however you can with whatever resources you might have. And you want to do it unconditionally and without exception, which means that you don't decide I'm going to be generous and kind to this person but not that person. You have to do it as much as possible without exception. That's service to others, esteemable acts of kindness to others, emotionally, physically, spiritually, however you can help others. And then the other component is, of course, forgiveness. And so the forgiveness is you every day when you are exposed to situations where you're judging others harshly, and judgment is a form of unforgiveness, it's an attack, you want to forgive. You want to let go of your judgment. You want to accept. You want to be tolerant. You want to be loving, and you want to be forgiving. You find ways to forgive those people who you feel have harmed you in the past, who are harming you now. You look for another way to look at it so you can forgive them and love them and accept them. And so that's it. Esteemable acts of kindness is one protein, and forgiveness is the other.
Now, the next one as part of the food plan here, as we're talking about, is a low intake of spiritual fat. Describe what that means.
Okay, so, fat in your diet, in a general diet, is clogs your arteries. So fat in a spiritual diet kind of clogs your spiritual arteries. Fat's not good. You don't want spiritual fat. And what that is our judgments, our jealousies, our resentments, our attack thoughts. We need to, every day, be conscious and vigilant over our thoughts and try to stop being judgmental and angry at people, and we try to accept and be tolerant. We try to get rid of our resentments, our jealousies, and just release all of those things. And so that's what you got to do every day, reduce your spiritual fat. Be conscious and aware, because a lot of times we will have these fleeting thoughts and like aggressive thoughts, and we don't necessarily act on them, but just having them in your mind is still a problem. And so you have to really try to neutralize it. You feel yourself attacking or judging, resenting, feeling jealous and envious, no, I'm not going to go there. That's not helpful. What they have or don't have, what they're doing or not doing, has nothing to do with me and my happiness. So I'm not going to engage in these negative attack thoughts on other people.
And it's so true, too. You'll find yourself in the course of a day where a situation might arise with someone else, perhaps it's even at work, and you already have these thoughts in your mind that create a veil which basically blocks the reality of the situation. So you constantly find yourself in a reactionary mode in situations. And you've probably found that to be true with a lot of people that you've worked with over the years, haven't you?
Oh yeah. People, because of the past and all the resentments and hurt and anger, they bring the past into the present. And they immediately, so somebody could say the sky is blue, but because you've got a resentment that could go back for years, what do you mean by that? You'll see that as an attack in some way. You'll see that, and you'll get defensive and angry, and so you attack people for little meaningless things. This happens in relationships a lot when a couple's not getting along, and let's say the husband did something to the wife 3 weeks ago. And they never really processed it. They never worked through it. They never dealt with it. So she's angry and hurt and resentful and holding that all in. And then one day the guy, comes in the door and says, "Hi, honey, I'm home," and she starts screaming at him. So people bring the past, they bring their judgments, their preconceptions into the present, and it really clouds our perception. As you were saying, you don't see the actual reality that's there. You don't see the innocence of that moment, because you've brought the past and your sense of victimhood into the present.
Yeah, I think one of the valuable things you were just talking about there is, let's take a couple, for instance, okay, and one of them decides to go astray in the relationship. Well, the bigness of the other person who feels hurt by this betrayal says, well, I forgive you. But the point is, they also don't forget. And very subtly, it just begins to seep away and poison the relationship, even though it's been damaged as it was because of the proclivity. And you kind of wonder, why people tend to think that that's the right thing to do, that I'm just going to keep sticking it to them even though I forgive them. So what's this grand road that you're taking? You're going to forgive somebody but punishing them by not forgetting.
Yeah. Yes. The fact is that people say they forgive, but they don't. It's not true. They may have said, "Okay, I'll overlook what you did last Tuesday or last year," but they haven't, because if there's still resentment and harsh judgment and a sense of victimhood, then regardless of the words you've used or the way you may have fooled yourself into thinking you've let it go, you haven't let it go. So it's still there, and it's still embedded in your view of the relationship. So if you really want a relationship to heal, and this is extremely difficult but possible, then you have to let go of the past. You have to try to say, okay, that was bad. I didn't like it. It was hurtful and unloving, but you're not. He's not doing that now. And so I need to just be in the now. I need to judge him as he is now. Right now he's considerate. Right now he's loving. Right now he's trying hard to be the guy I thought he was and want him to be. So I'm only hurting myself in the relationship by hanging on to my bitterness and hurt from the past. It does no good. I don't need it. I actually have the relationship now that I want, or at least I think I do. So let me have faith. Let me restore trust, and let us start fresh from this moment on.
Now, I like this one because this reminded me of when all of it might have started for a lot of us, and that is the low intake of spiritual sugar. And when you give examples in this particular area here, I immediately think of what it was like to be in, grade school, for instance, because of a lot of the behaviors that you were talking about in this one here were a lot of things that you've seen and experienced going on versus as we get into the adult years, we seem to, hopefully tone those down.
Yeah. The spiritual sugar is like in a diet. You eat sugar, you eat a candy bar or a cupcake, and in that moment, it feels great. This is fun. This is tasty. I like this. I have energy. But later you realize, okay, that was empty calories. That will put on weight. That will give me cavities. This actually makes me feel bad. Some of this crap I'm eating is toxic. So you don't want a lot of sugar in a regular diet. You don't want the spiritual sugar in your spiritual diet. And that is, as you're talking about, the cruel things that people do to each other as kids, and they do to each other as adults. We ridicule. We're sarcastic. We shame people. We do practical jokes, gossip, spreading rumors. All of these things are designed to make us feel important in the moment. We feel better than other people when we can ridicule them, make them the butt of a joke. But it's not good. We're attacking them. We're hurting them. And remember, when you attack others, you're attacking yourself. When you attack yourself, you're building up your own guilt, shame, and self-loathing, doing the exact opposite of what you want to do. So you don't participate in gossip. You don't participate in spreading rumors. You don't participate in setting up practical jokes or laughing at practical jokes. You don't have sarcasm in your interaction and communications with others. Sarcasm is a way to shame people, to make them feel ridiculous, to embarrass them, to say, I'm smarter than you, I'm sharper than you, I have a way to attack you and be clever and get a laugh out of it. So you're feeding your ego, and so it's sweet in the moment, but in the long run, you're really just attacking yourself, minimizing yourself, building up your own self-hatred, which will then turn into self-sabotaging behaviors, getting in the way of your success.
Mm-hmm. Now, the final approach on this one here is the high intake of spiritual fiber. Describe that one for us.
Spiritual fiber is basically, the golden rule. Treat others as you wish to be treated. Be honorable. Be honest. Tell the truth. Walk the talk. Say what you mean. Do what you say. Be consistent. It's so easy to rationalize bad behavior. Oftentimes we have situational ethics where if we feel that we're not getting paid enough at work, so we'll take home some Xerox paper or some pens and pencils as a way to get even, to get what we feel we deserve. So we think we deserve it, and by stealing, we have leveled the playing field, and we deserve to have this, and so it's all well and good. But it's not. You're still doing something that's inappropriate. If you are not getting treated fairly at work, you need to try to do something to change that, or you need to try to change your job. But to lower yourself and diminish yourself by engaging in an unethical activity only hurts you. Across the board, if you say to somebody, you make a commitment, I'm going to do this, I'll be there on Tuesday, I'll help you move, and you don't, it's not cool, you're attacking yourself. Again, you do things like that, you're building up your guilt, shame, and self-loathing at an unconscious level, and it's going to work against you. So that's what you got to do. You've got to tell the truth. Be honorable, be honest, integrity, responsibility, commitment, and follow through.
Now, one thing I want to really commend you on, too, about your book is I don't see any words in here that you typically see in the self-help realm, and that is quick and easy. Because we know anybody who's actually attempted the processes we're talking about here, it takes some time because you're learning new habits, new ways of thinking, and new ways of being, but it's certainly at the end of the day, I would say, the golden fleece that everybody searches for when they realize that the transformation is worth all of those steps to not only get there, but to continue on.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right. This is not a quick fix. This is a process. And actually, it's a lifelong process. It's not like, okay, at the end of, people talk about you do something for 22 days or 90 days, everything's going to be perfect. Now, I do talk about like that if you seriously commit to the forgiveness diet for 90 days, you will see results. But that doesn't mean the job is over. Basically, for the rest of our lives, this is all, kind of polishing the diamond in the rough. So, yeah, this is not easy. You have to have a constant vigilance over your mind as you're doing this. We're trying to create new habits of thinking to override deeply embedded habits that are at an unconscious level. So our ego will constantly try to subvert us, to get us not to follow through, to not do all the things in the forgiveness diet that will help us to heal. And you have to stay with it. But I guarantee that if you do stay with it, if you no matter how much, if you fall off the bicycle, you fall back and you don't do it, you get right back on the bicycle, keep pedaling, get going, keep doing it. The more you do this, the more you will see miraculous results in your life. You will see yourself feeling better and healthier and happier. You will see people wanting to cooperate with you. And oftentimes you can see people who you perceive to be enemies or negative towards you, you can see transformations because it's all about you. When you change, actually the people around you will change too.
And that's so true. I've actually talked with guests over the years about that very interesting phenomenon, how you may go to work, for instance, and there's someone there that, it seems like everybody just has something to say about them, but there they are. And the fact is, as you approach or you're with this person, kind of look for that good in them, that thing that you want to bring out and talk about. So let's say in the beginning that you do that because it's a way that you tolerate being around this person. You have to be around them because you work with them. But in time, as you're noticing that good in them, you start seeing more of it. And the most interesting part about that is even as they come around you, they become different around you. Then everybody else gets to see, well, hey, wait a minute. This isn't the person that we all used to think a particular way about, but this is someone totally different. Well, that's because you give them the opportunity to shine. Don't we all deserve that? And that's what certainly Forgive to Win lets us all know, that we all deserve to shine because it's our light that automatically and consciously gives permission for others to do the same. And I want to commend you on what I'd like, as I said before, it's a simple book, but it's very direct, and that's the kind of stuff that we need out there because it can be very, very effective. Is there a website, Dr. Jacobson, people can go and find out more?
Yeah, it's WalterJacobsonMD.com. And I also should mention that I have a YouTube site called Change Your Mind. So if you go to YouTube, you type in Change Your Mind, you go to my YouTube channel, there's over 100 videos, some very short, some longer, but they're all about forgiveness, relationships, positive psychology, healing, and happiness. So I encourage people to go check those out.
You have no excuse for the change. Dr. Jacobson, thank you so much for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Oh, Daniel, thank you very much. Take care.
You bet. We want to thank you, the listeners out there. If you're encouraged to change, you do want to pick up a copy of this book. I'm telling you, it's pretty interesting, very simple but very profoundly direct. Forgive to Win and Self-Sabotage. You get everything you want. You can also discover more by visiting us at Beyond50Radio.com. That is the number 50. We encourage you to sign up for our weekly e-news updates. You can also follow us on Twitter at Beyond50Radio as well as Facebook. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to the Beyond 50 Radio program, and remember, live your day past halfway.